Yep. Mine works. All right, are you guys ready?
Ready.
All right. It is 5:33. We'll call the Housing Advisory Board meeting to order. I am Allison and I am the board chair, and our first item on the agenda are public comments. And I know we have Glenn here, and I just wanted to invite Glenn up to the microphone. If you could just state your name and address and let us know a little bit about why you're here.
Hi, I'm Reverend Glenn Bosley Mitchell. My wife and I, she was the pastor of the community Congregational church for about 5 years and retired. And we moved away for about a year because we thought we'd be closer to grandkids and out east. And we missed Manitou. So last summer we bought a house again in Manitou, and I'm back in the area. I'm a retired United Methodist pastor, 42 years as a pastor in Florida. And we moved to Colorado. I did a year of graduate study I live in Denver. It was my bucket list to come back to Colorado. So my wife and I came back here, and I'd love to be here. I'd love to get involved in the housing advisory board, and that I'd come to a meeting and check it out. Would be glad to be involved. And sort of knows a couple of vacancies, so I'd be glad to put an application for that if that's possible. And wanted to meet y'all and see y'all's work. And we're excited to be back here in Manitou, and glad to be a part of this community. We missed it the year we were gone, so we're glad to be back.
Okay, well, thank you. And like I said, you're welcome to, this is a great meeting to be here. And, you know, if it seems like it's a good thing, there's a process, and we'll see if we can get you going.
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you. Excellent. All right, so tonight our main agenda item is discussion around Proposition 123 funding opportunities. And I don't know, we have like I said, a small little mighty board here. So I just thought maybe we could do introductions, and then I'll have Todd and Fallon do introductions and
Sounds good.
get us going. Okay, so I'm Allison Gerbig, and I am the board chair here, and have been with the Housing Advisory Board since its inception, along with Aaliyah. And some of the things we've done, we've did a habitability project that Manitou, the city, adopted, but affordable housing and opportunities like that has been our main mission. So I live in Manitou and excited to be here on the board. And I'll pass it to you, and then maybe we'll come back around that way.
Allison, do you want to tell them what your civilian, that's a bad term, your regular job is?
Oh, yeah. So I do have a regular job. So I'm a social worker by my degree, a licensed social worker, and I work for an agency called Rocky Mountain Human Services. Their main office is in Denver, but my office here in Colorado Springs is a program manager for a VA funded supportive services for veteran family, rapid rehousing, and housing prevention program. So I manage staff in Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and the Western Slope. And then we have Denver staff there as well. So that's what I do. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. I'm Nancy Fortune. I'm currently the mayor pro tem here in Manitou, and I'm the council liaison to the Housing Advisory Board. And council has just recently, and Todd, you were there the night we kind of decided that we were going to support the council was going to support the HAB in Prop 123. Yep. So I think it's kind of a 180 on council's part to really make affordable housing a priority in our city, which we haven't historically done that. So got a lot of work to do and kind of starting at the ground level. So thanks. Great.
Okay, Chelsea Royston, I'm a senior planner here with Manitou. That is my real job. So I also just wanted to remind you, Allison, we kind of dove in pretty quickly, but we do need a motion to continue the minutes, the December 20th minutes to the next meeting. So once we wrap up introductions, go ahead and do that. And thank you. Nice to meet you.
I'll go next. Michael Quintana. My wife and I moved to Manitou about 2.5 years ago and really wanted to get involved with the community here and figured this would be a good place to get started. Great.
I'm Crystal Carr. I've moved back to Manitou in 2013, I think. And my day job is the Homeless Prevention and Response Coordinator at the City of Colorado Springs. And I wanted to make sure that I was giving my own town as much support as I am trying to do for Colorado Springs.
Hi, welcome. I'm Aaliyah German. I'm the vice chair of the Housing Advisory Board and have been on it with Allison since its inception and have lived here for about 10 years now. And my civilian job is, as an engineer, I work with building energy codes, and I focus on reducing energy and making the built environment sustainable. So my special interest in housing is, reducing the cost of housing through sustainability and improving comfort and all that other good stuff that comes with it.
That's great.
All right. I will, let's see, should I finish up in introductions and then circle back to the minutes? Let me just do the minute thing and then I would like
Perfect. Let's do
pass it over to you all, okay?
Okay, that'll work.
Okay. All right. So I missed the motion. I need a motion to hold the December minutes until next month?
So if we could phrase that as motion to continue the minutes from the December 20th, 2023 meeting to February 21st, 2024. I would appreciate it. You can also just say so moved.
Also just say what? So moved.
Do I need a second?
I second that motion.
All right. All in favor?
I
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So moving back to our presentation here, I would like to introduce, have Fallon and Todd introduce themselves and go ahead and take it away with
All right.
with the questions.
Well, first off, thank you for having me back. I know I think the last time I was here, we were having this conversation about housing and just the importance of it from a town and a community standpoint. So I think everything that we build on, and we'll talk about this, Fallon and myself tonight, is really to give you a foundation to kind of build off of the decision that was made by the council to really move forward with Prop 123. And what does that mean for you as a town? What are the funding opportunities? Some of which we currently have, but I think they get bolstered by some of the opportunities we have around Prop 123. And then talk a little bit about some more grant opportunities. So let's just start with some introductions, and then maybe we'll just my ultimate goal here, I'll just share with you, is give you a quick rundown financially. What are some opportunities that are available to you? And then maybe we can share some things that you'd like to get out. So I think Fallon and I, as we talked prior to this meeting, just a little bit about it, some understanding of what are the things that you're looking to either accomplish as a community, as a board, and then as I think I maybe said when I was here last, my ultimate goal is to make you successful and thriving. And so what I can do, the Department of Local Affairs is just a tremendous advocate for local communities in this space. And so I'll leave it at that. But let me just share with myself, and I'll let Fallon give her introduction, kind of what her background is. So I'm the Central Regional Manager for the Department of Local Affairs. Our divisions are Local Government Division, and I provide direct support to local entities in what we call our Central Region. There's 8 of us around the state. I'm up in the Denver metro area, and I go all the way down to Colorado Springs and up to Teller and go out to Elbert County and over to Clear Creek. So kind of get all the the larger jurisdictions and then the smaller ones. So I get the diversity in across the state. So that's really exciting. And so, you know, most of us have backgrounds in local government. I've been a county manager for a couple of jurisdictions and worked in local government probably almost 30 years. So, so just kind of fortunate to you get to work with a lot of different groups. So, Fallon, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Thank you for having me here tonight. So I'm Fallon Miller. I am the Housing Development Specialist for the Division of Housing covering the Southeast region. So I cover 17 counties, ranging clear to the Kansas border, out past Trinidad, and then up to Teller County and over as far as just outside of El Paso County. So been in the affordable housing industry my entire adult life. So I started in real estate right out of college, and then got on with the Housing Authority of Pueblo and was there for 9 years. And then I've been at the state here for just over 2 years now. So I live, breathe affordable housing.
I don't think there's a better time to be in this state and honestly in kind of the division of housing world as where we're seeing right now, just the amount of money, whether that's federally or statewide in this case, than we've probably ever seen. So I think the opportunity and the timing to have a conversation about this is important. I'd be remiss not to just give you a quick rundown. As far as DOLA goes, Division of Local Affairs, we provide, we have our Division of Housing, obviously the Fallon is in. I'm with the Division of Local Government. But we have our taxation, the state property tax administrator is within DOLA. We have a state demographer that comes and for many times boards or even councils will ask the state demographer to come, and her team is it's just exceptional to see growth and talks about demographics. And I think as you're talking about housing, you know, we're talking about the needs right now, but quite honestly, you're also talking about what the 10, 20-year horizons look like. And that's where a demographer and their office can really provide you some demographic profiles to say, what is your need? I always talk about housing, not always as much as affordable housing, but I'll talk about in the context of diversity of housing stock. And I think that's one of the things that we need to, how we talk about housing, because there's some affordability aspects, but then there's folks that we want to come into the market, and we want families, and we want those that are retirees, and you need to have that diversity of housing stock to accommodate all those different needs. So I know you guys have that mission, and I think that's a great thing. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about Prop 123, just what did that mean? Obviously the council unanimously supported proceeding with that. It really opened up some funding opportunities for you. And I don't know if I'm happy to talk about it. Fallon, you want to maybe give a
I'll dive in.
Okay.
So with that, what they did was opted in. All that means is that that door is open, that developers, the city, the county, whomever may now apply for those funds. Without that opt-in, those dollars were off the plate for anyone in your community. So, 2 different pots of funds with Prop 123. We at the Division of Housing are handing out a portion of those, and then you have CHAPA handing out a portion of those for OEDIT, which is within the state. So the way I kind of look at the 2 buckets is we at the Division of Housing are doing the home ownership, any projects that involve home ownership, and any projects that are geared towards homelessness response. And then CHAPA manages those Prop 123 dollars for anything rental related or land banking.
And as you know, as we talked, and there'll be some terms that we can use, and please let us know if you don't know some of these that we'll get into. Well, I'll try and not do the acronyms because that's painful. But Land banking, for example, and this is a CHAFA program. This is an opportunity where or a developer or a community even identifies a piece of property that may be attainable for, and they want to move forward with the affordability, affordable housing, whether there's deed restrictions placed on the property once it's constructed, et cetera. But what it gives an opportunity is for a jurisdiction to identify the property, identify what they want to do, and they can come in and they can request from CHAPA funding to acquire that land. And that land then obviously has some provisions on it. So that's one of a number of programs. And I think maybe we can talk a little bit about Division of Housing and some of the programs you have and the funding opportunities. And then I can talk about some other things. So
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to Prop 123, we have several other buckets of funds that you can also come in for to aid in housing development. So what we are currently doing with our Prop 123 funds, as well as those other pots of funds I'm talking about, they go towards what we call gap funding. So when you're putting together a development, you would go out, you would get your regular loan from your bank, however much you could get from your local bank. You'd go to all your other grant funders out there, Colorado Health Foundation, those kinds of things, get together all your money, and then you come to the Division of Housing and say, okay, I was able to get this is my total cost, this is what we're short. And that's where we come in and we try and fill that gap at the end to make that project financially feasible. So with that, in Manitou Springs, we could fund up to, currently it's at 50,000 per unit. It is about to go up to 55,000 per unit. We just closed stakeholder outreach on that, but I am assuming it will likely go up. I don't think we've ever had those denied. So plan on 50, but likely going up. So every unit that gets developed, we could potentially put up to that amount of grant funds or loan funds, depending on the project and who the applicant was. So that's how we are currently using our Prop 123 funds, as well as our other dollars that we have. In addition to that, we also have vouchers that can be applied for tenant supportive services. So if you are, I'm looking at you because those supportive services that you're offering, we could potentially help pay for some of those for the first 5 years. So we do contracts for the first 5 years of a project on tenant supportive services. We can do project-based vouchers. So if someone wanted to develop like an apartment complex and they wanted a voucher on every one of those units, they could apply to our Office of Homelessness Initiatives to get a voucher for for project-based vouchers on every unit of their project. Those come in, the VASH vouchers for veterans, all different types. We have federal, state, a wide variety. In addition to that, Prop 123 is likely going to have some new programs that roll out in our next fiscal year. So July 1 would be the start of our new fiscal year. And we currently, between now and then, are out in the communities across Colorado, as well as putting out for stakeholder outreach online, asking, what do you folks need that money to go towards? How could we use it to help you? So we're hoping to create at least 1 or 2 or so new programs to be able to fund with Prop 123 funds, in addition to the gap funding.
And what we've seen is specifically with the Division of Housing this year, they've really just bolstered, added money to some of their existing programs to make them even more attractive and kind of help a broader audience. But as Fallon alluded to, I think you're going to see some additional programs that will come on come July 1 into the new fiscal year. We're talking upwards of almost $300 million in Prop 123 funds between the Division of Housing side and then the CHAFA component. So we're not talking about, small amounts of money. These are large dollars. Obviously, they're fairly competitive. I think if I was a community and I was talking about this, I think when you guys have a structure in place to have the conversation, between Fallon and myself, sometimes what we'll do is you'll identify a property that you want to maybe spend some more time on. Most of these projects, and tell me if I'm wrong, but they require, if it's the developer, but it may require the county or the city to come in to help offset some of these costs. Typically what you're seeing is things like public infrastructure, water, sewer, major tap fees, connections, are what we can also fund. You have been fortunate, I think, your city manager's been very active in the funding rounds for our Energy Impact Assistance Fund, and been fairly successful there. We can do things around housing projects though for public infrastructure. So say you need the tap fee or the water fee or the sewer connection lines upgraded. We can help fund those to offset those overall costs. Many times when you have a developer that comes in and does a project, usually those fees and those costs of those sewer or basically public infrastructure upgrades are borne by the developer themselves, which again, our ultimate goal is how do you make a project like this be financially feasible to move forward. So as Fallon alluded to, there's money per unit that can be put towards affordable units, but on the back end, we can also help support maybe the public infrastructure side, not necessarily the vertical construction, but the horizontal construction to get a project off the ground. We can help provide some funding for that. So again, Energy and Impact Assistance Fund serves as that. We can offer up to $1 million for projects. They have a 50% match attributed to them. But we've seen this happen in a couple different places, and I think it's been fairly successful.
Absolutely. And then with our gap funds, it can be for vertical construction or it can cover acquisition. So our costs can go towards a variety of different opportunities as well. And you can always layer those too. So you can get some of those energy impact funds from the Division of Local Governments for that infrastructure. And then once that piece is done, you can come to us for some of that vertical construction grant funds. We also have right now a loan fund that is relatively new. It's just in the last 6-8 months. That is called the Transformational Housing Loan Fund. So it's actually a hard pay permanent financing option, but it's much lower interest rates than what you're seeing out there right now. So our interest rates are 1% for nonprofits and local governments and 2% for for-profit agencies. So as I'm sure you all are aware, interest rates right now are upwards of 8% or more. So that can really help with Project Pencil as well, having that permanent hard pay debt at a much lower interest rate. And you can layer that with the other two as well. So you can layer some of these funds to make these projects pencil as well.
Yeah. Many times we call this capital stacking, where we just stack different financing opportunities. I want to share with you one other piece. Obviously, I talked about our Energy Assistance Fund. We have something right now that is going to be rolling out. It was kind of notified this week, but for our next grant cycle that opens up in March, we have 3 cycles, a March, a July, and then a November cycle. We have something called our More Housing Now initiative. So this is an infusion of cash, about $10 million on top of our normal grant program. The beauty of this is twofold. One, the match requirement's only 25%. And the request and the maximum amount can be up to $2 million. So I share with you, many times you either have some sort of project that you have either identified or somewhat in the works, but the money will be there until it runs out. And you know, there's a demand around the state. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but I will tell you that there is a concerted push to partner even more so with the Division of Housing on getting projects off the ground, more so than I think I've seen in my time both with Dole and then prior to this. So, so again, an initiative above and beyond our normal grant program.
Sorry, Todd, I have a quick question.
Yep.
I know it's gonna come up after the meeting, so
Yep.
is that kind of outside of the EIAF grants? Like, would we be able to apply in those rounds and as well in this round, or?
You can, I think we need to talk a little bit about
Okay.
what the most timely piece is. But the cycle and the application process are the same time periods.
Same time, but, okay, yeah, I think you can anticipate that question from Denise, so just.
Happy to talk to her about it. We have a couple, we have that one, we have a climate resiliency challenge, another initiative, and we have one called our Main Street Live, which for council, that's about how do you revitalize the downtown corridor, and we have some programs there too. So love to catch up with Denise.
Thank
We
you.
usually talk pretty free.
Awesome.
Let me talk to you about one other program that we're doing. It rolled out, it's called Strong Communities Grant Program. It really was predicated on if you opted into 1, 2, 3, it gave you that funding opportunity. We did our first round of funding. I believe, I don't know, we had 9 or 10 different applicants that received funding for that. But in addition to that, we're also rolling out dollars called our local capacity grants. These are for planning related purposes. So whether it's a staff that would help with anything related to code improvements or how to expedite permitting processes, all those sort of things that are just kind of best of breed around planning. I know that's maybe not directly in your wheelhouse, but Chelsea, this may be something for you to be aware of. But our grant cycle is open right now through March 1, and you can ask for planning funds to help with implementation, because I think housing, one is about the construction, but the other is how do you create a community environment and a code environment that is supportive of these sort of projects and give that flexibility. And
Helps
Fallon,
bring
you've seen this,
developers
right?
in for sure.
Yeah.
So, City of Colorado Springs is a great example of that. They've updated a lot of their rules and regulations, as well as they have a variety of different, very unique funding options. And I always like to bring theirs up to the outlying communities, because it is a great opportunity if you could convince the city to, take on any of these type of opportunities. Because, for instance, they have a rebate program, sales tax and fee rebate. So they can rebate part of your tap fees, sales tax on products brought in the city limits, those kinds of things. And you can get some of that money back on your development. And they actually apply to Division of Local Governments to help offset some of those costs for those fee rebates. So that's just kind of another backdoor way to get in on some of those grant funds.
So, and why I bring up the planning side of it is because based on these sort of initiatives that are kind of brought forward, then they come and they ask for grant funding, and those are, I think, you just become more competitive in the concert of others. The beauty of Colorado Springs, I think, if I recall, is either 850,000 or 750,000 they received from the Division of Local Government under this IHOIT program, another acronym that we talked about. But that's how they're offsetting it, because, just like a community, you're doing fees to help cover costs attributed to development, and they're in the same boat. But they identified this rebate program that not only backfills them, so keeps the city whole, but it also benefits the developer or that person and that group that's coming in. And when they're doing up their pro forma, they're saying, hey, this cost that we thought we're going to incur maybe 50% of that. And it makes it more attractive.
That shows local contribution.
Yep.
Because we do require that as well at the Division of Housing. We want to see as much local contribution to projects as possible. It used to be that we would not put any more funds into a project than the local municipality had. That is, we still push for that, of course. We want to see as much local as we can into the project. But we are understanding of, especially in these smaller communities, there just aren't those resources available. So even if you're able to offset some tap fees or offer some rebate of some sort, that's showing you are interested in these projects, you support these projects, you're doing the best you can, and that we accept that. So
We've thrown a lot of stuff at you, but I'll share one other just because I think it's timely, and it's really a question I'd have for you is where are you at from a housing needs assessment? Have you done some work? Is this something that you're looking to explore further? If so, we do help fund housing needs assessments where typically a consultant will come in and do an evaluation of what is, what's your makeup of your community, obviously demographics, and where are you lacking in terms of that sort of infrastructure. And so we can fund that through Division of Local Government. Sometimes that can be through an EIAF grant, but depending on the cost and the scope and the size, if it's less than 100,000 and we could do a 50-50 match up to 25,000. That's a non-competitive grant. It's just working out of scope. So if there's some work that you as a committee and as a council would like to potentially support, I'm happy to talk to you about that because, just like you guys are having this initial conversation about funding, setting the framework of what your real need is, not only now, but in the future, I think it's a good thing to do. So we can help do some funding and support you in that capacity as well.
something to just mention on that scope as well. I have actually been having a couple conversations recently about doing a county-wide one. So if all the all the different jurisdictions within the county could come together to come up with that match, maybe we could and do one across the county, because there is so much of a housing need across this entire county that and the last one I was looking at it right before I came in actually was done in 2016 for the countywide. And so it's very outdated. It's time for a new one. So something to keep in mind when you're talking to your partners in the county.
Yeah, that's
something to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. And in fact, we just funded and we're on our second phase of a project. This is up in Denver, but the Denver Regional Council of Governments is actually doing a region-wide one. So this is even broader. It gets a little squirrely just because of the number of jurisdictions and you're going from the Denvers to the cripple, or I should say Idaho Springs and everything in between. So that one's a little unique. I like the concept. I think generally, I'll be honest, we really like projects where you're partnering across jurisdictions where it makes economic and political and financial
Feasibility.
benefit. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be that way. So yeah, something to think about, but I would just remiss not to talk about some of the housing needs assessments. You may have a lot of that in place, but if not, this could be an opportunity to take a look at some things. Yeah.
So with that, and I do not know, but I did not think the county had opted in to Prop 123. Does that have any impact?
The answer is it doesn't, as far as as far as this funding that I'm speaking to, it wouldn't have an impact. This could be an opportunity where just because the county didn't opt in on the Prop 123 funds does not mean they would be precluded if we were going down doing a housing needs assessment.
It's a different bucket of funds than Prop
Exactly.
123.
It's a great point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can keep pushing the county and get them opted in next year. That's the goal.
On the topic of the housing needs assessment, so there was one that was done a number of years back. With
2016 for Teller County.
for Manitou Springs as part of our strategic, well, as part of Plan Manitou, I believe, prior to that. Well, maybe, kind of. Well, so it's,
been a while
let's
ago.
say six years. So, I guess that's kind of in the range of 2016. And I know also this came to council, right, last year, and council opted to not move forward with a housing needs assessment at that time. But that was before we opted into Prop 123. That was before there were opportunities for funding. What is your sense for how important that is that we update that as part of our work?
It's mandatory to receive any funding from us or CHAPA. You're gonna need either a housing needs assessment or every single individual project will have to pay for a market study that is a project-specific market study. So, and it has to be dated within the last year. So that 2016
Okay,
one is
thank you.
really outdated. And so that's why it came up in our recent conversations around the county that where other jurisdictions are looking to do some new development. That was one of the first things I brought up is there's nothing with recent data in it for around here. I know, I think Woodland Park did one just recently that they finished, but it was city specific. And I pulled up just so you all know, the one I am referring to, there was actually someone from every single jurisdiction on a affordable housing steering group back then.
All right.
That put it together.
I'm so sorry, Fallon.
You're good.
You had mentioned Teller County. Is that for El Paso County? Because Manitou actually is in El Paso.
Oh, is it in El Paso?
Yeah, right on the
Oh.
Yeah.
El Paso already has one.
Yeah, they had, the
Where's the
county has one. The question comes down to how in depth that they get as relates to you as a city. And obviously we can do some.
And I think they're mentioned specifically
Paso.
in it. Yeah, in El Paso's, I feel like Manitou might
But
be
we'll
mentioned.
look at this.
I'll
one.
double check on it.
If
'cause-
anything, you should have a copy of it. I think it would be
Yeah.
really beneficial for y'all to see at least what they've done. In El Paso, they didn't opt into 123, but
El
they have
Paso
been-
County did not opt into Prop 123 either, same with Teller.
Mhm.
That's why that's on my mind. I'm mixing them up. But I feel like I'll pull that up and send it to you all. Cause I'm working with Katie at the city of Colorado Springs. And they recently pulled that up and sent it to me. So I'll see if I can get my
I
hands
won-
on
I
it.
wonder if that's the city, not the county.
The county's one. Well, they had both.
Oh, did they have both? Good.
Mhm.
All right, well, something to work on. I think it'd be beneficial. Where I've seen success is when you have a plan that you can say, hey, we're not just shooting bullets out here and see what sticks. We're a little more strategic and targeted because and Manitou's unique in the context of it's not like you have a ton of land. You have some just topography and some issues that make it difficult. So being really targeted about even the properties that are available. I think the other thing and I think on the council and some of the conversations that we're had is what about redevelopment? What does that look like in a community that may not have a ton of land?
We were talking about ADUs. But
ADUs,
the
yeah.
possibility those are a little slimmer here because of your topography. You just don't have a lot of flat land on your lots and big lots. They're smaller lots, it seems like within city limits.
So
So those are
something to
options.
look at. We'll get you what has been done, at least at the county level. And then we can talk about how applicable is that to what you have right now. But in the event that that's something you want to pursue, I'm happy to have a discussion with you about how we can support you in that effort.
The other great thing about having a countywide housing needs assessment is, like I was mentioning, it helps bring those developers in. It's one less cost they're gonna have for their project. Because otherwise they have to spend that, anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 on that project specific market study. So it's just kind of another way that the city can offer an incentive for development.
And then can I ask what's a market study? Like,
Look
is that
like compared to,
cost? Like,
so a market study usually ranges $5,000 to $10,000, whereas like your housing needs assessment is much higher. I've seen them ranging from 25,000 up to 120,000, depending on the region, the size, that kind of thing. And the big difference is on a site-specific market study, it is only looking at what you're planning to build. So if you're planning to build 50 units and you're planning to market them to people low income, 60% area median income or less, that kind of thing, that's all they're going to really look at. With the housing needs assessment, it looks at the whole big picture.
okay,
It's going to tell you how many units you need at every single level of income. And it's going to tell you also what your population demographic looks like. It's also going to look at future needs, whereas a market study is just in the here and now because it's for that development happening here and now. So all those things really, it can also help in, aiding any economic development opportunities because it's giving you that demographic information. It's going to show how short you are on housing so that any new businesses looking to locate here, those kinds of things, they can use it for that benefit as well.
got it.
And it does touch on, as I mentioned at the beginning, diversity of housing stock. It gives you an idea of where you're short in certain areas and where you may have adequate capacity in others. And I think those are always good things to have.
Something else to keep in mind, as Todd was mentioning, we're seeing more money available at the state level for affordable housing and attainable housing and such. Another big difference right now is there are some funding sources available for those working class individuals, where in previous years, we've only been able to fund those low income individuals, which is what we consider 60% area median income or below. We now have some of those funding programs that can go up to some 140% AMI in certain areas. So that is also a huge difference of what developments can be funded, because it used to just be those low income. Now you're talking workforce housing, which brings in higher rents, higher for sale prices, which can also help bring in more developers.
You also see where a project may be split, where you have a certain number of units that are a lower AMI, and then you have some that are a higher. That also will help the project to pencil as well. Obviously, some of the funding that we can provide will vary depending on how a multi-unit development project may come together. But yeah, I think we were missing that workforce housing, that kind of entry level person has jobs, doing well, but just not able to kind of get in the housing market. This gives that opportunity, and these grant funds are there. So I think, yeah, you're spot on there. There's some things that just weren't available to us even a year ago.
And I think the reason for that is, the government is seeing that legislation, seeing folks even working can't afford the price of housing anymore. And so we are able to come in now and actually assist on those. So
yeah,
it's a big difference.
I think the last thing, and it really is depending on, I'd have to look at the demographics, but community development block grants or other areas, if you guys, these are federal dollars. There are some Davis-Bacon requirements about construction. So there's some nuances that are, we need to sort through, but every year, El Paso, I'll talk about CDBG because the state actually has CDBG program, but it's for jurisdictions that aren't entitlement jurisdictions. In your case, being in El Paso, an entitlement jurisdiction just means you're 400,000 people or more. They get a direct allocation of CDBG funds. You have to go to the county to request those, but those can be for public infrastructure improvements, honestly, it can span the globe. There's a lot of diversity there, but the nice thing is they're usually don't have a match requirement to them. The state has CDBG funds, but usually for the non-entitlement jurisdictions. So
Which
are we,
Manitou Springs,
they're in El Paso, so they're,
but it's by city.
no, it's like.
So, yeah, this past year for CDBG, we did go to the county and we received 300,000 to upgrade ADA improvements at our library.
Okay.
El Paso County also has what we call housing trust funds. That I see in all of my Colorado Springs projects. They usually put in right around 500,000. That's kind of the norm I've been seeing across projects. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but it's through the El Paso County Housing Authority. And so that's another pot of funds that developers can apply for. Those are a hard pay loan, but same thing, very low interest rates, very long terms, that kind of thing. So that's another funding opportunity.
I have a question. Oh, you go.
Yeah, just in terms of developers, because we've got a couple of projects in town that are, one that is redeveloping and wants to do some more accessible housing, and another that wants to do mixed use to incorporate accessible housing potentially. And both are having a tough time making the business case to do what they need to do, because one is in a historic area, so that puts a lot more constraints on them. In fact, our whole city is like that. A large part of our city is under historic preservation constraints, which is a good thing on one hand, but when it comes to, doing
Funding.
things. Yeah, exactly. So do the developers, do they work with the city, or who do they go to access some of these funds?
So it kind of works both ways. So for a lot of the Division of Housing funds on my side, they can talk directly to me. And then what we do is if it's funds that say only the city could apply for, which is very rare on our case, there's only a couple times that happens. But then I could kind of help those conversations with the city to see if the city could apply for them. But most of the time, our funds at the Division of Housing, the developer can apply for them themselves.
Great, so I definitely want your card before you leave.
Yes, absolutely.
Many times these developers will come in, they'll talk to the planning staff to start with, and I think it's a great partnership. If you hear about projects or about projects, I think I'll say it's always a good conversation for us to be aware of, because we can either say, yeah, kind of fits in our wheelhouse, or we can get you in a direct location, or it just may not. So they can come directly to us, and normally what I see, if a developer comes directly to myself, one, I usually will reach out to the city just to be aware of that. So it kind of can go both ways, but we're happy to sit down and having a conversation, because as Fallon alluded to, they can do vertical construction. They can help with some of the things, as you alluded to, of if they're wanting to redevelopment, redesign some of these units, they can get some money towards that. And then depending on what the public infrastructure looks like or the challenges around that, it's where our side can come in to maybe help have a project come together too.
So Fallon, you were talking about like the project-based vouchers and those different types of, opportunities for rentals. Does that count like on our we have to in 3 years develop or preserve or something 47 units? Does
So
that go towards that count?
project-based vouchers do not.
Okay.
So what goes towards your count is new units on the books. So any units that got redeveloped and now have a deed restriction on them, So if they were once market rate and now they're getting some construction done, something like that, rehabbing, and now they're gonna come to us for some funds, we put that use covenant on it, those count.
Okay,
Any new construction will count towards that, but not technically the vouchers, but
okay,
most likely when someone came to us to apply for vouchers, it's because they are creating a new development of some sort.
okay. So a lot, because I know it, I mean, you weren't there, but Todd was there and Nancy, of course. Some of the council members were talking about like, we do have a lot of like units.
Yeah.
Rental units that they could be converted then, rehabbed in some way to then be deed
restricted.
restricted so that they are counting towards that. So that's where that like those Chaffa dollars would come in, or would it again?
Depends on what the project is
Okay.
and what we're looking to do. So we are the voucher administrator, usually on like project-based vouchers, if you're looking for those. Chappa has funds for LIHTC, those kinds of things, if we're going that way, or land banking and that, so it all just depends on who's putting the money in.
Okay,
What there isn't that Todd and I were talking about, that it sounded like maybe some council members were questioning was, is there any kind of incentive for like current owners to just deed restrict their house? Like it's already rented, it's already there. Is there any incentive for them to do that? There really is not. They could absolutely rent to someone that already has a voucher, because so there's two different types of vouchers. There's the tenant-based voucher where the voucher goes directly to the tenant and stays with the tenant no matter where they live. It just goes with them. Or like what I was talking about was project-based vouchers, and those ones stay with the unit.
yeah,
So those landlords could always rent to a tenant that has a voucher already, a tenant-based voucher. And then that guarantees them rent, but it's not putting a use covenant or a deed restriction on the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, and that did come up. Actually, we talked about that to some degree, and I think it really depends on the project. But if someone was coming in and they have some properties that they want to make affordable, and they want to do redevelopment and redevelop those, in order to make that an affordable unit, that's where that can come into play, where those can be more of a counted sort of unit to do that. But just the true, I just want to put a deed restriction on that wouldn't count. And they're quite honestly, a property owner is going to look and say, what does that financially benefit? I don't see much of a benefit under that current scenario.
yeah,
Yeah, that, really the financial benefit for developers is in that kind of upfront stages. We can help offset some costs, we can infrastructure costs, acquisition costs, those kinds of things, vertical construction costs. And then what that does is that makes their debt lower on the property, which then allows them to charge lower rents to folks and keep it at that affordable rate while still making a profit. So that's kind of how it works for the end user.
got it.
And then if they wanted to do that like project based where there's a voucher attached to it, that's just kind of those guaranteed rents, no matter what, the check's coming from the voucher administrator instead of, if the tenant lost their job or something like that, and then you don't get paid because they don't have money. That kind of takes that out of it.
Do you all have questions? Yeah.
Can you dig into what that redevelopment scenario looks like a little bit? Like what is it, is this, I'm guessing this is usually on larger scale apartment buildings or something. And I mean, is a developer and owner coming in and applying for funds to upgrade the facility? And then, as you said, kind of their bottom line shifts. And so they're then able to deed restrict, and because they're offering lower rents.
Exactly. So we see it a lot in either rehabbing something that's already housing or turning a commercial building into an apartment building or townhomes or something like that. So there's different ways of doing it. If it's currently housing, it's rehabbing. bringing it up to current codes, putting in energy efficient appliances, energy efficient, windows, those kinds of things, and just bringing it more up to current codes and standards. And more energy efficient to save on utilities, those kinds of things. And then they could get grant funds from us to do that work and better their property. And then in return, we put that deed restriction on it. It counts towards your Prop 123 numbers, and then it makes it affordable housing long-term.
So in thinking through what that might look like in Manitou, where, yeah, we do have a lot of, real small, multi-apartment, but, a handful or single, single family home rentals.
Mhm.
I mean, so could an owner could apply for funds and upgrade, make the building, bring it up to code, make it energy efficient. And if they agreed to deed restrict it, then that could potentially be eligible under the program.
Yes, so we could. But like I was talking, we have that per unit maximum that we can put into it. So they would have to get, funds from elsewhere as well. All those things have to be considered. But yes, that's ultimately how it works.
Yeah, you wouldn't be paying 100% of the
Exactly.
project. Yeah, right.
Exactly. Another, example is I had a sixplex. I mean, it doesn't always have to be huge 50-unit apartment complexes by any means, but taking a sixplex that really had not been updated since the 70s and it needed, even just all new flooring and paint and those kinds of things, just rehabbing it to really make it a more usable, friendly space. A lot more hotel motel conversions. We're seeing a lot more of those. So if you have any old motels or hotels that need, that nobody's using, converting them into an apartment complex, an affordable housing complex. We see that a lot. I actually have also a workforce housing group that I've been working with in Colorado that's what they do is they go around, just do hotel motel conversions and turn it into workforce or affordable housing. So there's lots of partners you can kind of partner with to do these things with too.
Yeah, I was interested in that. I know like Silverthorne had a development where there was specifically workforce housing. You had to work there a certain percentage of time. Would projects like that kind of take us out of any of these funding opportunities, or would those still be available?
Explain how the project worked on that one.
I just know that you had to apply and show that you were working a certain percentage of time within Silverthorne. Would a program like that then not allow us to access certain funding?
So if I recall, and there's a couple places that are doing something similar, it was really tied to living in the community. You had to work in the community, if I recall how some of those programs work, where they got a lower rent as a result of doing those sort of things. It was kind of a, how do we keep people in the community and having folks working there. But typically, and I think if I recall, the project was owned by the city or it was the housing authority as one of the two. And they would apply for these sort of funds to build the project and make it pencil for them. And then they basically passed on that savings. And in fact, if I'm recalling, they also they used some of their lodging tax, and the lodging tax went to help pay down the rental incomes. And so it was basically a reinvestment of lodging tax to keep people in the community that were service workers, and I think even city employees, I think they do that too as kind of an incentive to get people to
So
work there.
on the Division of Housing side, no, you could not apply to our funds for that.
Yeah.
Just so you know,
It-
so we do not allow employee specific, that kind of thing where you are only renting to folks that like we've had, community colleges want to house just their students and just their teachers. We do not allow student or employee housing with our funds.
Even if it's not restricted to a certain employer?
Correct. You are still restricting them to work. per state law, you cannot discriminate against source of income. So saying someone has to work in your community is still really walking that tightrope of discriminating on source of income. Now, what it does allow is that it has to be their primary residence. So that kind of gets you around some of those things. Because it has to be their primary residence, you know that they either work or whatever, get their income very close, and that their income that they do get, whether it be social security, disability, working income from a neighboring town, if they work, in a neighboring town, whatever, they're still bringing it back into your community because they primarily live in that home.
And that's a lot of how they address that
They
issue.
work around it.
But I think their program's actually been pretty successful. I think there's like 3 of them around the state, quite frankly. A lot of them you see them up in resort communities or areas where really challenging for housing. And obviously we can share what they do and how they do it, but they're always looking for ways to make the overall cost a little more affordable. And again, they're reinvesting money that they're collecting, in this case through lodging tax.
Thank you.
Yep.
Amy's on the screen now. Hi, Amy. Do you have any questions? I know you popped in a little late.
No, I'm good. I'm enjoying hearing everything. Thank you for coming, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. I have one more follow-up question on kind of the redevelopment. What would you suggest, like if we wanted to really kind of think through what that scenario would look like in terms of what funding sources might be available for projects in Manitou, what, kind of like almost putting together some sort of rough or broader generic pro forma to start having conversations with that type of stakeholder. What would you suggest in terms of digging into that more?
So usually, I work closely with and have those upfront meetings with the homeowner, developer, whomever. And if the city wants involvement with them, and we start those conversations of, this is the actual project. Once you actually know, like an actual site, an actual motel, an actual apartment complex, then we can kind of start running through those, what are you looking to do? What's the estimated cost? And then we can look at what funding sources would match up with what they would like to do. And you can kind of start playing around with, okay, but you can get more funds if we go this route, or there's this little amount here if we go this route, that kind of thing, and start playing with those on an individual basis. That's what my main job is to be out in the communities, working with those folks one-on-one, project specific. How can we make it work on my side of the boat?
Following up on that, I think it would be helpful for me anyway, and we've talked a little bit about this, to have some one-pager information to advertise, because we've got a lot of owners, and if we could advertise owners who might be interested in these programs, but it's something to hand out to them so that they could know about the program and kind of what's more specific to them. Like, we do still have, we're losing them almost daily, some old hotels that I think would have been great for affordable housing, but they're going away quite quickly. We've got a lot of historic housing stock that are rented out, and it's very sad to see them cut up into multiple units and then just deteriorating like crazy. These gorgeous, gorgeous old homes that are just falling apart, which is the exact opposite of what we want to have happen. And yet renters, grab them up because it is the least expensive. So those sorts of, that absolutely need to be rehabbed. And could access this, but so it's just to get them interested and to get that foot in the door, I think. Do you have anything prepared like that?
It's
Does that make sense?
short answer, I know what you're looking for. Short answer is no. And the reason why is because there is so many but ifs. Like, we do not fund a lot of just 1 unit or 2 unit projects. So because it's not financially feasible. Could we? Absolutely, if you would like to, but the problem is all the pre-development costs that have to go in to even apply for like Division of Housing funds. You have to have a phase 1 environmental completed. You need that either market study or housing needs assessment. If there's not a housing needs assessment, you gotta have that market study. You're gonna need cost estimates. You're going to need architectural drawings if it's a project in which there's any walls moving or utilities moving and those kinds of things. So a lot of times those 1-pagers discourage folks more than they actually bring them in. And so that's why I try and work more on that individual basis to see if I don't have something, there's also, other programs like CHAPA, or we fund a lot of what we call single family owner occupancy programs across the state. And so we fund agencies, other agencies, nonprofit and housing agencies across the state with grant funds that they then loan to like single family homeowners to do those upgrades and things that need done. So yes, I'm happy to put one together, but I'm hesitant too, for that reason, that I prefer to be able to have a conversation, and then if I can't help them, at least hopefully I can direct them to someone who can help them, so they don't just look at something and say, no, I don't fall within that, and get discouraged and don't want to do it. Because that's what we see a lot of the time. So happy to go either way, and I can definitely email the whole group if you would like, the appropriate links, the other funding sources available, those kinds of things, if you want those, and my contact information, all of that, so you have it easily handoutable.
And that, and I think there are some 50,000 foot level sort of information that we can definitely provide. At least it's a starting point. Because I think, one's about their project, but in some cases, I think what you're speaking to is how do we get the word out that there are opportunities, what that looks like and how a project will work or not. Those are really those individual sit down conversations, but I think there is probably I've seen some stuff, and I think we probably could at least put something together as a information dissemination piece for you to.
Yeah, and I think Crystal's actually working on something for us.
Oh, good.
For the city, correct? Weren't you gonna do those sorts of things?
I think I was gonna look at I
Right.
was thinking like if we put something together that is specifically like with who our owners are in mind, would that be a better thing to like send to you and go, do we have the correct information here to go out and try and market it? And then, have that information in here that this is just basics.
Yep.
But what's out there wanting to let you know,
Yeah,
like
funding for
connect
these,
you.
we
Yeah.
can do that very high level. We fund, acquisition, land banking, whatever, all those things, rehab, da, 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 da. And then once you kind of hand that to them, if they say, yeah, that sounds kind of nice, I want to hear more, then have those kind of one-on-ones or two-on-ones where the city, this group's involved, and me and Todd and the potential owner or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe, those 1-pagers, whatever, individual ones for different types of projects, because, and then that might, still at that high level, but provide a little more context for somebody's just, an owner of a handful of 6 plexes or 4 plexes or 8 plexes in town. we want to target them differently and provide them different types of information than, you know, a potential new developer coming in.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, land banking isn't gonna be for those folks. That's for someone that's like looking to buy land to do a project. We probably want to put that on that sheet, but we may put some other things. Yeah, we're happy to do some and at least have a starting point. I think that'd be great.
What do you think your probably biggest demographic of project would be? Like those rehabbing current existing probably more so than new construction?
Yeah, I mean, we have a open land leveled motel on the Ave that could be a potential new build. And we have, like she was saying, some historic, like cottage type things that where they're having some challenges around. I think their idea was to convert, but with the historic preservation challenges. And then, yeah, definitely like the units, the multi,
Yep.
rental, like older things to be like converted to affordable
Gotcha.
restrictions. So
Something to keep in mind too with those historic buildings is historic tax credits are an option for those. Which is another different funding source. Not through us, but those are just, another one of those ideas I would mention to them, and I have all that information that I could pass along.
That'd be great. And we do have a Historic Preservation Commission here in Manitou as well.
Okay.
So, and one of the things we're trying to do is partner, the HAB is trying to partner with them. So I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're aware of those credits, but my sense is that marketing is going to be one of our biggest
yes.
challenges.
Yeah. And we do, I mean, you mentioned ADUs. That's definitely been on our agendas for a long time. The city, we're still trying to figure out what that looks like in our city, but that we do believe could provide some opportunities. Like we've talked about, like, we have older, like single, widowed or whatever in a giant house, and maybe they want to rent that and then
Live in the
have
smaller.
live in the small or do something to.
Well, and it's the great thing about kind of that ADU dynamic is whether you're living in the small one or you're living in the big one, you have an income that you could bring in, and building that, long-term growth for folks is really important to get them out of the situation that they're in, that they needed that affordable, kind of helps them grow.
Yes, yeah, to allow people to stay where they are, not have to leave the community because, they can't afford or even
find a place.
maintain. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So those I think would be, yeah, and I think Amy on our screen is our fellow writer, our newspaper writer. So we thought one of the did you know, like articles would be something about, like she did the current one, just sort of introducing the opting in opportunity. And then another one, we wanted to try to do something more like what everyone was asking.
What's available?
What's up?
Like what's available? What's out there?
Exactly.
Could it actually help us?
Yeah,
So you opted in, now what?
exactly. So that's what we were trying to get at is, yeah, how can we market in writing, and then of course have people come and, connect with us to get them connected to you.
I guess so. Here's another route to think about on how you would like to see these one pagers. Would you like to see a Prop 123 specific flyer? What can be done through that specific if you guys were, because you were talking about letting everybody know you opted in, because that's, could be one in its own, because I could include CHAFA's different programs that are Prop 123 eligible as well, and that just be, these are the opportunities through Prop 123. In addition, there's all these other opportunities type of thing.
Okay.
Hi, I will just say that any information you can give me, I can turn into an article because it's really about marketing and in providing information. And so even if it's just, this might not be what Manitou does. I think just learning, I'm a big picture person, and just knowing like what this, like land banking, that's not going to work for Manitou, but it doesn't mean that people can't understand what land banking means. Before I started doing this research, I had no idea what land banking means. And now I know, okay, that's a different pocket of money that's probably not applicable to Manitou. And so as a citizen, I would be like, oh, I don't need to worry about land banking. I'm going to look at these other pockets of money. And I love what you said about what's available. So thank you so much. Any information you can get, I can turn it into an article.
I will send you information for days, I promise.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, nothing else? You guys all taking it in and
We've thrown a lot of stuff at you.
yes,
So,
it was a lot.
Something to digest. Maybe the action step is working on maybe some of these one pager components, or at least getting the information for you. And then that may be dissecting that a little bit, and we're happy to bounce some things back and forth and see what works for you. But I think it's all about, you're going to have different mediums and different audiences that you're trying to kind of communicate to. And so how do these translate into that for those specific
And being
groups?
most beneficial
Yep.
with those conversations, being very, oriented on who you're talking to and really reaching them is super important.
Yeah, and maybe some of them that are sort of in the works, that could be a good
Starting point.
first starting point, and then we can learn alongside that
Absolutely.
as well. So yeah, it's so
It's usually,
great.
once you have one project in your community that's received it, done it, that's the best marketing there is. So
Yes.
if you think there's maybe, one or two or three projects that you really think they probably are interested in doing, let's have those conversations first, try and get one of those off the ground. And then as people see it actually happen in your community, then they're like, ooh, I want in on that.
Okay.
And well, I'll just say, I think Fallon's probably seen it all. Probably the good, the bad, the ugly, but he's probably seen every different project. So, some cases people want that, once we talk to them, they may want to see an example of how it works somewhere else. And you probably could share
Many.
what some folks have done that's worked well, and then others that, hey, you may want to steer clear of this or do something a little different. So.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's great. At CML, of course, we get so many case studies,
Yep.
which are incredibly valuable because people who aren't, don't learn by reading stuff. When you can actually see projects, then it generates a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So case studies are good.
Yep. Okay.
Absolutely.
Amy, did you have your hand up again?
Yes, thank you. I was just gonna say to Fallon, like, if you think of any cities that you've worked with that have had projects go off the ground and have been successful that are super comparative to Manitou, that would be great. Just even like, oh, this city had a comparative historic preservation project, so to speak, because I can write about like, here's a successful story in Silverton, or here's and this is how it played out, and this is how it helped the people, because I am a person that, I like examples, like Nancy said, case studies. And I think educational portion, sometimes we talk about grant funding and block grants and buckets of money. And, for some people, I'm just like, I can't listen. My brain just
Too
tunes
much.
out. But if I say, oh, do you see how this worked in Silverthorne and it brought 223 jobs? And, that is like coloring the picture. And I think that works really well. So if you can think of anyone that's like applicable to us or comparative, that would be so beneficial for an article or marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Like a motel conversion would be.
Yeah, we can, I'll
something
try and
like-
find the closest to Manitou in each kind of different bucket.
Yeah, that'd be great. Wow, thank you, Amy. Thank you. Awesome. Well, again, thank you for making your way here. You come in Pueblo and Denver.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're happy to do it. Thank you guys for having us, and hopefully this just goes at the starting point, and love to be back, but I think we have some marching orders here to work on right now. So
How do
Yeah.
I
could
get everyone's contact information?
So
yeah,
do you want me to just send, were you copied Fallon or you just said her name on the email?
you know what I'll do. I mean, Allison, obviously we've connected here
Yeah.
multiple times. All between you, Chelsea, I'll just send you all your contact information. That way you all
Yeah.
have it, and then
And then if you can just reply back with
Yes.
everyone you want
And I
included
could,
in the
yeah,
correspondence.
include, yes, for
Cool.
sure.
Yeah, typically because this is a board, any communication to all of them, should probably go
yeah.
through staff so that we
Oh,
don't
yep,
have a
that's
violation
right.
of open meetings.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it.
Okay,
Sorry to be a
Oh,
bummer.
you're
no, you're fine.
So would you recommend, because like, as Nancy alluded to, I'm supposed to be gathering information and letting people know what's going on. And so would you recommend that we should attend the meeting on the 24th for the Prop 123?
Which one is it?
Sorry, I don't have my.
I'm trying to think of
It
what's coming up this
is
one.
a DOH Prop 123. Oh, probably not. It's homelessness funding. So I'm like, not this group. I'll be on that meeting, but not for this
Yep.
group.
Probably not.
So
I will definitely let staff know of any that do come up. We oftentimes do like webinars and those kinds of things. So if there's ever any Prop 123 ones, I'll definitely let staff know and they can let you all know.
and I was just gonna share with the group. There is tons of information on the engageddola.org
Mhm.
/ Prop 123 page that has.
Oh yeah, you can
loads
get
of
lost there
stuff.
for days and days and days and
Yeah.
days. And now we have just the engageddola.org one that's where, like, we put out for stakeholder feedback on what would you like to see done with Prop 123 funds. So that's another great one but that's what I'll be sending over to staff. I'll have all those links with information on each of them, where to check certain stuff out, those kinds of things too.
Excellent. All right.
Great. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate you
Yes,
having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you
You're welcome.
so much. So appreciative. Safe travels back.
Thank you.
Oh, what's this?
And I will. Yeah,
All
there's
right.
it.
So,
I'm gonna share. Thank you all very much.
yes,
Thank
thank you. Okay, where are we here? I just had for our next item 2 under old business was just to review if we had any reviewing of the Q1 action items and reports from last time. I just wanted to start by giving kudos to Amy and that beautifully written and thoughtful article. She received kudos right away. I don't know if, like, I'm like, people probably think I wrote it. I didn't write that. I'm just the information person, but she received from the bulletin a really nice comment about how, well-written it was and how oftentimes, articles don't come that way that quick. And so, excellent kudos and well-written. We thank you for that, Amy. Do we have, so Amy, on that, we have now, January, and then you have a February.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I sent the February one to Aaliyah to approve because it was about EEP. So she approved that. I sent that to Alex. So I'm waiting, as soon as I get his approval, then I will send it to Rhonda. That's kind of the process we're going about. I have a timeline not in front of me, but I have a due date once a month from Rhonda. I just need more subject matter for March and forward. I think a lot of that, I can grab a lot of that from Fallon. So as soon as I get that stuff from the city, I'll be able to work those into some some articles. There was some concern with city communications that we were not paying for the advertising. So I just wanted to communicate to the board that I did talk to Rhonda about that, and she said that the bulletin is not looking at these articles as a free advertisement as so much as a freelance article that they normally pay people to write. So they're not concerned about it. So I did express that back to city communications and let them know that this is not, you know, a freebie or anything. In fact, Rhonda said, I'm paying writers and you're doing amazing work and helping to fill the paper. So just wanted to communicate that back. And I did let Alex with city staff know, and he was thankful for me getting clarification.
Excellent. Thank you.
Amy, I actually did not review your article yet, and I'm sorry if I miscommunicated
Oh, okay.
to you.
Well, it's not gone to the paper, so if you have anything, just
Yeah.
let me know.
Yeah, no, I have it flagged and it's on my to-do list, but I realize I did not I've had it in my inbox for a week or so. So
No
I
worries.
will do that in the next couple of days. But I'm sure it's great.
Cool. And then she had like sort of an ADU article, and I just thought we should pull that one off until we had deeper conversation. And then look at maybe the March one as something like we were just talking about, having some content that she receives from Fallon. Does that seem like a good use of the March? Did you know? Yes, for everyone else? Okay. All right. Excellent. And then did we have anything else that we needed to do check-ons on from that?
I wanted to like just let everybody know, like I was gonna let you know about that meeting on the 24th, but that's not appropriate because I was trying to rush. But right now there is a grant application process with a group called the Colorado Trust. I don't know if you've seen that, Chelsea, or not, but it's community resilience initiatives. And I was thinking whoever's talking to developers, like, I don't know if you're talking with Gracio or not, but one of the initiative, and it's a competitive grant. The first one is sustaining housing solutions. And so that might be, like, there's a lot of stuff. So I did send this to Allison, and then also for fun, I also sent Allison the Urban Institute has a fun little website you can go to and pretend you're a developer to see if you can make it pencil out. And so that could be a helpful tool to use, you know, in that marketing piece, if there is. And just kind of as an aside, and I'm curious what Chelsea has to say, but when we were talking at that last meeting, you brought, not you, I think what, Hannah, sorry. Terrible with names, but Hannah brought up that the habitability codes is something that's been going really well. And it sort of seems like I would be curious if we can get information on the units that are getting cited for those habitabilities, and if they are associated with like more, maybe we could use that to market directly for the redevelopment, to say, okay, we see that you have these issues. Here is, you know, Fallon and how she could help you cover the costs of those redevelopment. I know that's a big if, but I was just thinking if we could even look at that, some of that information to decide if that's viable or not.
So we'll have to run that by Hannah. Right now, we do not have a code enforcement officer. And so we need to get that position filled and get them back on, you know, kind of brought up to speed. So I'm not sure what kind of like how that information is currently organized and where it's kept and if there are any sort of like privacy concerns or things like that that might come into play. So I will do my best to communicate that to Hannah, but if you want to shoot her an email too, that might, just so that it's communicated clearly, I guess. And then we can try to I'll put a placeholder in like the mid-year meeting and we can touch base and see if maybe that's a better time to look into that again.
Thank you.
Does that
It's a
sound fair?
stretch and I will try to flesh out the idea a little bit more so it's not as crazy.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, Crystal. Any other action items from last month that we need to report on? Let's see. I can't. I don't,
It'd probably be in the.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear
Minutes.
that. What was it?
no, it would have been the action plan, the details,
Oh,
but
mhm. I was just gonna say for my action item is deferred till next month.
Yes.
And I plan to pull together something on the energy efficiency program
Okay.
and how ideas that we could consider to try and get more activity out of it.
Okay.
And if there's time, we can talk about that at the February meeting.
good, okay. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I see anything else that's was timely. I mean, we had the DOLA representative, so that's excellent. And then you're gonna get us connected.
Yeah, I've got word out to both the HPC chair and URA to get together. So I know, as I said before, URA definitely wants to in their meeting Friday. And then HPC. Chris, I think that's a great idea, actually, if it's at all possible, hopefully that we can, you know, access that data. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I was supposed to, I have asked, I do not have the phone number or email for the Cheyenne Village folks, so I've reached out to planning department to see if I can get it. And if I can't, I'll just go to their house. I know where their house is. I don't have their email address, their phone number.
Okay.
So, but you know, after tonight, more than ever, I want to contact them.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
And now that I have her card, I will just give them her card and say, contact her.
all right. Good, and then we'll get, I'll get the minutes and things for in our next meeting sent out so we can have like the little action items clearer, so. Okay,
Allison, did you also want to talk about the time and format for the next few meetings?
yeah, so I have that, yep, on, I didn't know if I would have that under reports or if I just want to bring it up now.
Sorry for jumping the gun.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know when to place it there, so I can, do people care if I move that, the board member, I'll move it up and get into that now? Yes, okay. So I just wanted to let everyone know, I think everyone knows that Amy is in grad school. And as much as she tried, she couldn't, she has a conflict with the next 4 months. So really it would be January through April, correct? Because your class ends in April. And she is unable to join our meeting until 6 p.m. And I'm proposing if for at least February, so it'd be February, March, and April, if we could change our HAB meetings to 6 PM and have them be virtual. And then in May, and I know I talked to Chelsea about it, you know, they don't like to change meetings all the time, but if we could just call it like a wintering opportunity or something that we're doing it. I feel like if, you know, we could have 6 in person, but then I feel like having one person on the screen, I don't know. I feel like having all of us on the screen, if we can make sure that our voices and our faces can be seen and heard, can, you know, promote a healthier opportunity rather than having like Amy pop in late or just have her on. I don't know what so I'm putting that out to you all for discussion and thoughts.
Can I make a motion that we just move forward and having 6 PM virtual meetings from February through April?
Yeah, I don't think it even really needs a motion.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that'll be recorded in the minutes, and when we notice our next meeting, we'll make those changes.
Okay. And I know that having, you know, in person is great, but I also think we can be really effective on virtual meetings. Do you guys agree?
I agree. I think hybrid meetings are very difficult, especially when you were like Amy, the one person sitting in the internet.
Yeah.
And trying to like interject. It can be very like, I feel for you, Amy. Thank you. I hate being in that position. So yeah, I agree. When it's everybody like all.
Yeah, if we're all on the screen together working, and I'll talk to Hannah about it, but I would think that we can share things probably pretty easy and do those type of things, right? On the Zoom platform, Chelsea?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that's so
Can I
next,
just briefly say thank you? And I'm sorry to cause so much confusion. I did try to, I was texting Allison immediately. Basically, I've had a Tuesday night class for the last 3 years. Without telling us, they changed it to Wednesday night. So the like 3 days before class started. So I was texting Allison frantically and working with the university, but this was the best solution Alice and I could come up with. However, I will just say thank you for your empathy, Crystal, but if it works best for everyone, I don't mind doing this because, you know, I do want to be respectful of city staff's time and whatnot.
This actually works better for staff as well. I'll be out the next few months, and Hannah has better success running Zoom rather than hybrid meetings. So nothing against Hannah, but we do have a tricky system here. So
okay. So like I said, it's all gonna work out. And I think, again, it's winter. I think it's like wintering
Yeah,
time.
it's also like dark and I mean, somebody got sick last week, you know, last month. And so I just think, you know, I don't know about you guys, but the time change really messes with me.
I just wanted to say whatever, absolutely, Amy, thank you for working so hard to try and figure this out and make it work. I think we have such a great board right now, and I'm so happy that the 3 of you, I'm looking at Crystal, Michael, and Amy, because you joined in the last year, are here. I just think we have just great ideas and movement, and maybe another new member soon. And yeah, so very happy to be flexible.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, everyone
As
and
I
staff.
said in the email, your contributions are key, and I wouldn't want to miss
Yeah, that's what I was
I wouldn't want to
thinking.
miss having any of you. So
I was like, we need you, Amy, and you
Thank you.
a service to the bulletin on our behalf. That otherwise be being paid for. So thank you.
yes.
No problem. Thank you.
Michael, if you were still in the land of the law somewhere, maybe we would have just stayed hybrid, but I think it's going to work. Okay, awesome. All right, so that I jumped ahead on my board member report. And so we'll move on to city council liaison.
Not much to report. We've been meeting a lot, but we've not been doing much of anything groundbreaking. It's more just administrative and cleaning up ordinances and that sort of thing. Couple things, the big thing, of course, was the first of the year, the second of the year, we swore in all the incumbents as the re-elected council members and mayor. We also did the assignments for the boards, commissions, and committees, and I was reassigned to HAB. So you have me for another year at least. When I was exclaiming with dismay over the loss of hotels, because rumor is, and I haven't confirmed it, but rumor is that the Metro District is purchasing the Ute Motel on the other end of town for surface parking. So there goes another potential opportunity, which worries me as we keep losing those sorts of opportunities within our city. Alex, if you don't know, Alex is leaving. His last day is February 2nd, I believe. So that's a huge loss to the city. Amy, I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but if you talk with him, I know. He is making arrangements for his transition and who will be picking up the slack. So you'll need to talk. Are you talking directly with him or is Chelsea talking with him on your behalf?
I am. I'll speak to him.
Just speak to him and find out who he's passing you off to.
But that's a huge blow. Yeah. He's a
Yeah.
wonderful asset.
And they'll advertise his position, but he's just been a tremendous asset to the city. Boy, I wish I could read my writing. The last thing that I can read is that the library, we're going to be turning dirt Friday morning at, I believe, 9:30, 10 o'clock, somewhere in there for the, celebrating that they're actually going to start building the new library. So everybody's invited, bring a shovel. It's going to be really cold again. Not as cold as it was the past few days, but colder than today. So that's exciting. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions? Cool. Thanks.
All right. Chelsea, any updates?
So I did mention our one staff update, which is our community services officer. Is that position is being posted, and I think that's most of what we had. I had the library groundbreaking on my to mention list as well. We will have our new electric trams running from Hiawatha parking lot up to the library free of charge. So that is that's available that day. And I think that's all we really have.
Good. All right. Well, thank you all for your time, and thank you for joining us today, Lynn. And if you're interested, there's a, city process. I'm happy to help direct you to that if you have interest, and we will, be meeting next month and the following through April virtual. So meeting is adjourned 7:17. Thank you all. Thank you, Amy. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Good night.